Have you ever wondered what it would be like if the UFC had competition? I mean, actual competition. I'm not talking Bellator and PFL. These guys that put on events in Africa with fighters you've never heard of. No, I'm talking true competition. Now, you old heads, y'all will remember Pride. Everybody loves Pride. Strikeforce and Pride were the epitome of mixed martial arts. They are romanticized through and through, and people still think about them today. Thank you very much.
No problem. You enjoy it.
BRQ, the best barbecue in town. It's been well over a decade since Pride has been bought by the UFC. Well over a decade since Strikeforce was bought. But we still talk about it. Why? Because it drove true competition. And this weekend on Netflix, Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano are returning after over a decade apiece from fighting. Their goal, obviously, is to make a lot of money, but the goal of MVP MMA is quite interesting. They're not trying to compete with the UFC bar for bar. They're not going bar for bar with the UFC. No. Instead, what they're doing is we're going to put on a really good event. That's what they want to do. They want to put on a fantastic event for the fans to watch. And if you look at this card, obviously, Carano and Rousey are kind of it's a guilty pleasure. We know they're not elite anymore. Both of them are Gina is 40 and Ronda is knocking on 40's door, about to barge her way in. But you look down the card and you see what they've tried to do, and they've done a good job. Whoever's doing the matchmaking here is doing a great job. Francis Ngannou is a guaranteed knockout. He's fighting Felipe Lins, a career-long light heavyweight. You look at Nate Diaz and Mike Perry, just an all-action fight. You look at them trying to do Adriano Moraes and Muhammad Mokaev before Mokaev had to pull out. But you look at these fights, and it's very clear that whoever's doing the matchmaking for MVP absolutely know what they're doing. You can't go bar for bar with the UFC. You can't counter-program the UFC. They made Canelo wait, for crying out loud. Canelo waited for the original BMF title. So you don't counter-program with them. PFL's failed at it. Bellator's failed at it. Instead, what you do is you put on fantastic events. Instead of wasting money in, Nebraska with a fight nobody's going to watch because you've got Arnold Allen and Melky Costa at the Apex this weekend, you put on something that's worth watching. And what's interesting is the mind behind this, Jake Paul. Everybody loves to hate him, but Jake Paul, the idea is disruption. And if anybody's good at disruption, it's Jake Paul. He's done this his entire boxing career. Love it or hate it, that's exactly what he's done. From the Ben Askren fight all the way up to the Anthony Joshua fight, what Jake Paul has done is got people talking. He doesn't try to put on an event every single weekend to counter-program the UFC. No, when Jake Paul fights, that is the most important fight of the weekend. That does the most numbers on social media. It is the most talked about fight. Love him or hate him, high level or not, people talk about it. And that is the most important part about what he does. What he's doing here is the exact same playbook minus the Jake Paul part. He's gone. Leave him out of here. But it's still a fun event. Ronda Rousey is still returning to mixed martial arts. Gina Carano is still returning to MMA. The last time Gina Carano won a fight, George W. Bush was the president. That's how long it's been. But you talked about it. Not to mention where the fight's being broadcast. That's something that is going well under the radar for a lot of upper tier fight fans. The casual guys get it. It's on Netflix. And if it's on Netflix, more people can see it. The UFC is going this way. They're going to the whole, we want access. They got rid of pay-per-views on Paramount. They've got, all access stuff. They're putting it on CBS. They want more eyeballs on it. The more eyeballs, the better. We talked about with Luke Thomas, the content farm that it brings, but what they need to do is get in front of more eyeballs. They were undercut, or they're being undercut by Netflix. This is going to be a 100 million viewer fight. UFC doesn't even sniff that number. You could combine all the pay-per-views of the Paramount era so far, which January 5th, 5 of them so far, not touching it at all. That's how big this fight is going to be. That's how many people are going to watch this. This is more akin to Muhammad Ali and George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. That year, more people watched that fight than the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, Rousey and Carano, as great of fighters they are, they're not Super Bowl material. They're not Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. No, those were the two elite guys. I get that, right? But what you're missing out on is the amount of people that watched that fight and the amount of people that are going to watch this fight. There's no point in postulating on this fight, though. Like, Rousey hasn't fought since she lost to Nunes, since Nunes literally smashed her brains in. And Gina Carano hasn't fought in 2 decades. Or in two, she fought in 09. Don't get me on that one. But, she hadn't fought since 2009. We're in 2026 at the time of this video. The idea isn't putting on the best fighter, even though they went and got the Muhammad Mokaev, Adriano Martins. They went and got Francis Ngannou. They got Mike Perry and Nate Diaz. That's all fantastic. But what they did was they didn't schedule this out for 4 events. No, this is one event. One event. So yeah, I can sit here and tell you, maybe Felipe Lins can, wrestle Francis Ngannou, who is knocking on 40's door himself. But what's the point in that? That's not what really matters. And if Francis loses, you can bet that this would be a much bigger news story than anything on the card. Felipe Lins beating Francis. I mean, yeah, sure, wrestling. Okay, but what are you going to do when Francis comes out there and just swings on you? Think Jairzinho Rosenstrike. You could talk about how Nate Diaz and Mike Perry are going to put on a really fun fight. Nate Diaz is the original BMF title fighter, fought Masvidal to a loss. Conor McGregor, the Nate Diaz story. I don't have to recap that to you, but Mike Perry has been slowly building a resume in himself with bare knuckle boxing. He went and had the Jake Paul payday, which launched Dirty Boxing, his fight promotion. But also, you got to look at what they're doing with this fight. It's another all-action fight. Nate Diaz brings the sound clips, and he's fighting Mike Perry. Sure, they like each other. I get that. But also, they're going to go out there and throw some leather. Mike Perry hasn't fought in MMA since he left the UFC. But he's been in some tough scraps. He's been active. So the dynamic there is like, hey, can Mike Perry, the active fighter, not in MMA, beat Nate Diaz, the relatively inactive guy? Yeah, he probably could. But 100 million people are going to watch it. I can't stress that enough. 100 million people are going to watch this fight, if not more. I wouldn't be surprised if it came out and saw 150 million watch this fight, which I think is probably all of Netflix's subscribers, but I still wouldn't be surprised. This is the business Netflix is in. This is the business MVP is in. They are not counter-programming the UFC. No, they are stepping over what the UFC did and putting on gigantic fights. We've got the Usyk and Rico Verhoeven fight coming up in a couple weeks here. They're fighting at the Pyramids. Look for more stuff like that from MVP, from Netflix. The reason they're doing this is for programming. Netflix wants people. They want people to watch their service. That's what they do. The event level fights won't stop. We've got the White House card, and we've got all of these events. We have the Sphere card. You got the Noche UFC card that they do. Event-based fight, the Times Square card that the Saudis did in New York City. They do this because it's a spectacle. Music doesn't work, but you put the Egyptian pyramids in the background, and you bet your sweet tail I'm going to watch it. I was going to watch Usyk and Rico Verhoeven fight anyway, but let's be real. It's cool. More of that. Ryzen has it with their Landmark series. It's a need to entertain that puts Netflix in the market. Their market cap, I talked about this with the devil in disguise, with the UFC and Zuffa Boxing and TKO taking over the world of boxing. What that's doing is, their market cap is so much higher than Matchroom. It's so much higher than everybody else. They can outspend everybody. But do you know who can outspend TKO and Paramount? It's Netflix. And if Netflix thinks Jake Paul and his band of marauders are the way to go and are the perfect people for this, it's going to be a problem. The UFC has a big problem on their hands. And if Netflix and MVP realize that they've got lightning in a bottle in this fight card, it could be a huge problem going forward. I look for them to kind of take over. I look for them to become an actual threat. I look for all of that. But at the end of the day, you're not going to counter program the UFC. That is not going to happen. You have to put on events, spectacles like this. Go back to the Sphere. Netflix, spend the money on the Sphere, on the production. That is how you win. That is how you become a true peer to the UFC. You don't PFL it. You know exactly what PFL is doing. You don't PFL it. You do all of this, what MVP MMA is doing. So as corny as it is, watch this space. It's important because this could be the future of MMA. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, the whole 9 yards. Here's Fight Finders on this side. You know about Fight Finders. It's my docu-series. I promise, I pinky promise, I've got the John L. Sullivan episode coming soon. I've got to convince my wife to let me go film in New Orleans, but she's shaking her head right now at me because she knows I've got 2 bad kids waiting at home. But guess what? She'll be all right. Check out Fight Finders. It's going to be great.